So I got another little project that I'm working on, but I thought I would do a video on this problem and share with you, because imagine there's a few guys out there that's had this problem with these bikes. This is a 94 Suzuki Intruder 800. I bought the bike really cheap from a friend of mine, and I worked on the bike off and on for probably a year. And of course the bike was abused. It sat outside, typical stuff. And I finally got it running. And it run on one cylinder. Well, I fought with that. I thought, well, this can't be a, clutch sensor, kickstand sensor, anything to cause it not to fire, because I'm running on one cylinder. So I knew it had to be some sort of a wiring problem. But in the midst of that, I went ahead and put on a new stator. I just updated everything, rectifier, new fuel pump, new CDI box. Like, I've done a lot of stuff through, because the bike was off and on, firing and not firing. But I knew these things needed updated anyway, and they're really cheap, super cheap on this bike. So I pulled it out the other day, and I pulled the gas tank off, and I started at the top of the harness, or it was in the sleeve. I pulled everything out. I went through every strand of wire on that bike. And right there at the last, I said, well, maybe I'll just, because I was still having, same deal, run on one cylinder. And what's crazy is it run on one cylinder. It might run on one cylinder, then all of a sudden it might run good for a little while, go to crank it up next time. It might not be running on the back cylinder. It might run on the front cylinder, it might run on the back cylinder. So in the midst of taking all that out and inspecting every single wire, when I got to the CDI box and started to unplug it, I noticed how much slop was in that plug-in. And even though it plugs in, I'll show you what I'm talking about right here in a minute, and it clips on, you would think it plugs in and clips on, it's good, but there was just a lot of play in there. So what I ended up doing was, when I unplugged it, the little prongs, I think one of them might be a 4 and it might be a 6 pin flat. These are flat. So I took needle nose pliers and bent them. I twisted it up like that, every single one of them. I squawed them all up, so where when I plugged them in, it made it actually give it, where it put it in a bind and actually pressed up again. And I had a hard time plugging it in because I bent them a lot. But when I done that, the bike fired on both cylinders and has been firing ever since. It makes sense because the CDI box controls the firing. So that's why it was maybe firing on one side or firing or front or the back, because when it's pulling on the wire, because it runs down, the seat sits on the back of the fender. I'll show you that in just a second. Matter of fact, hold on, I'll bring you out there. Let me see this. All right, so this is the bike. This is my rat rod, anything goes bike. So, like I said, I started from the top of the tank all the way down, every strand of wire, but the CDI box sits on the front fender, and the seat, pulls on those wires, probably some, and then you got a seat sitting on top. Just movement happens, that's just in general, and then you got vibration. But these were so freaking loose. I mean, I could sit there and just dangle them like that, and even though they clip in, they were just extremely loose. This one actually still has a little bit of play. I mean, typically that's okay, but just the design inside of this, it just wasn't making good contact. So bending those was the key. It done the trick. That was the whole problem all along. It was not making good connection. So it might get pulled a little bit and fire on the front cylinder, or it might get pulled a little bit, fire both cylinders and run good for a while. Then all of a sudden, bam, which will throw you for a loop in many different ways. Yeah. So anybody out there with these bikes, and I heard they're notorious for running on one cylinder by a guy who works on bikes around here. He said he hated these bikes because they were bad for that. He never could give me any info on to what, so I don't know if he ever figured out any of them or would get them running, get back to customer, and then it happened later on because of this happening. That was the problem. Bad design in these plugins. The bike's been fixed and has run great ever since I've done that. Hope it helps somebody. See you on the next one.